The bike was actually in pretty decent shape physically, I mean looking at it, but everyone that owned it had issues with it. And of course, you know me, oh, I can fix anything, I'll buy it, and I bought it cheap. And I did ride it for like 6 months trouble-free after I took it all apart, put it all back together, and looked at all the things that everybody had complained about. It's an old STN bike. It was known as the Possessed F650. Belonged to Bluetooth. And then, yeah, the demons started to come out, and it was just one failure after another. I think the guy that bought it, he flew all the way over here, bought it with the idea he was going to ride it back to the East Coast. I'm like, I wouldn't do that. I was straight up told him I wouldn't do that, but you know, he was like me. I can make it work. I don't think he made it. If he did make it, he had to stop for repairs more than once. Wow, that shock is nice. I kind of like it on these bumps. Got to get those front emulators in. Although handling on the street is not something I ever complained about on this bike. This bike is amazing how well it handles on the street in stock form. It really is. Pleasantly surprised with how well it rode on the stock suspension and the stock tires. Just wasn't a big fan of how soft those seat tires were. They were, seemed like, you know, you could get a puncture with a thorn off a rose. So I put these Mitas EO7s Plus on here, and I transferred them over to these Bartubeless aluminum wheels. And here we are today, just cruising along. We're running tubeless right now. Tubes be gone. Still carrying around my air pump and my tire tools to fix flats. I don't probably need to change that out. Probably still need the air pump, but now I need rope plugs. I think there's a bottle of slime and patch kit, whatever, in that right bag there. So here we are, just motoring up a hill in fifth. No massive bog or anything, it's just going. It's probably because of the CV carburetor. You know, that carburetor's letting it have as much throttle as it can handle and no more. With the fuel injection, you can open that butterfly wide open. And of course, that's where the bog noise comes from. Because you're giving it way more, you're giving it access to way more air than it can choke down. Which turns into a weird resonating bog through the airbox. We are slowing down. Motoring. Now it sounds like a dirt bike. Starting to remind me of the old XR or TT550, XT550, sorry, that I used to have. Wish I had a TT550. I had an XT550. Yamaha. And that kind of goes back to that. I wish somebody made a 500 single basic adventure bike without too much tech. Just the right suspension, just the right torque. Because some of the most fun I ever had was on bikes like the XT550, XR600, 650 rather. I never rode a DR. I've ridden a KLR a couple times. It's a good bike. Nothing wrong with it at all. Just kind of a pig. Kind of like this bike. This is Junior Pig. This bike, there's just something more primal about it. It's old school crude. And I think that's what draws people back to it. You know, It's the most fun they've had riding a motorcycle in 200 years. It's because it's kind of like riding a motorcycle 200 years ago. No, okay, no, maybe not 200 years ago. But you get what I'm talking about, right? You smell what I'm stepping in? Let's turn up the wick here, motor up this hill and fit. Hopefully this GoPro is still working. I'm not freaking out. GoPro Max is like 500 bucks now. I don't know if I want to spend 500 bucks on another GoPro. I haven't really had this one that long. I bought a surplus 7 Hero, what, 2 years ago. Really never did much with it. I think the first time we really used it, we took it to Vegas. We stayed at Tahiti Village, and they have a big pool, the lazy river pool. And we kind of just floated in the lazy river and had drinks and cocktails and beers and shots and filmed it. It was pretty cool. Everybody was actually really cool. No one seemed to care that the GoPro was going. You know, some people get all weird about that when they're in their bathing suits, but everybody was having a good time. No one cared. I told them it wasn't going to go on social media or anything. It was just for personal. I wouldn't want to put people on YouTube in their bathing suits without their permission. Although you wouldn't know their name. Would it matter? I don't know. Yeah, just motoring up these hills. Kind of fun. Sure will be nice to know that this camera's still going and I haven't been talking to myself this whole time. You know, at least I'm listening to myself. That's probably at least one more person than normal. Any of you guys watch Itchy Boots? I think my wife and I binge watched seasons 1 through 5 and half of 6. Caught up with her where she's at today. Well, she's not really there today. Delayed releasing those videos. I'm sure she's probably back home editing video. But she, you know, she's headed to Alaska, going up the Alcan Highway, but then she takes a left and heads to Rupert and hits the ferry. Makes me wonder if she's just going to ride the ferry all the way to Seward. I mean, that might be what I would do. I've driven up and down the Alcan a couple of times. I want to do it on a motorcycle someday before I'm too old, but if it doesn't happen, but right now, if it was me and my wife traveling just to do the vacation thing or the, you know, on holiday thing, I'd probably hit the Alaska ferry system at Prince Rupert, and then visit all the ports on the way up, and get off in Seward, and then ride the bike from Seward to Anchorage, where my brother lives. My son also lives in Alaska. Actually, I would be hitting his house first. He lives in Soldotna, Sterling, Soldotna, Kenai area. And then we could hang around there for a little bit and then head back down to Seward and get on the ferry and come back home. Sounds expensive, but how expensive is it compared to flights? I don't know. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's to the point where if you got things you want to do, you should probably do them. And you can afford to do them. You should probably do them. Like, people ask, why'd you buy this bike? Because I wanted to. So I did. I'm glad my wife understands. Of course, she has the same freedom. If she sees something she wants, buy it. She just doesn't see anything she wants, I guess. I don't know. Nah, that's not true. She has her purse collection and some other things. Of course, I have model trains too. It was funny, somebody made a comment about my YouTube page having model trains on it, and I need to gear my my YouTube channel more towards adults and not 16-year-olds. And I'm like, 16-year-olds, do you realize some of those locomotives that you're looking at are over $1,000? And they're like, what? I'm like, yes, $1,000. I said, this ain't no 16-year-old hobby, buddy. He's all, why would anyone pay $1,000 for a toy train? I'm like, why would anybody pay $25,000 for a motorcycle? I don't know, because that's what you want to do. You want to do it? Do it. I like doing the layout thing and the model train thing. Let's see what little bit of artistic ability I have come out. I think some of that may have transferred over to my daughter. She's an art major. Yay, art majors. She's in 3D animation. I actually got the idea of 3D printing train stuff from her because she does the 3D printing thing. I've designed some locomotives myself because no one else makes them. The style of locomotive that I was looking for at the time. Design it in CAD, export the file, print it, put all the working components into the chassis and throw it on the layout. Watch it go round and round, make noises and smoke. Kind of fun. Good winter hobby. I haven't been able to do much this summer. I have had so much going on. We had a pool put in. We've got motorbikes to work on. We've got just all kinds of stuff. You know, because gas shot through the roof, I stopped driving cars. And if I can, I ride a bike. So, not as much maintenance on cars, thankfully. And of course, the miles on the cars are accumulating a lot slower. That's a good thing. Maybe they'll last us a few more years. Little breezy. It's always windy right here. So the wind rushes down this mountainside to this. The wind must spill over from the ocean coming this way. Rushes down those mountains. Floods this area with wind. I think if I lived on this hillside, I'd seriously invest in a couple small windmills, the small personal ones. Because I don't know that there's a time that the wind ever stops right here. I'm actually surprised there are not full-size windmills right here powering this community. because why not? You know, everybody wants to do something about climate change, but nobody do anything. The government wants the money, but what are they doing with it? Come on, Joe. Set me up some windmills here. The wind's always blowing here. Lower my power bill. Don't set up windmills and charge me more. That's not how it's supposed to work, man. Come on, man. Had the cars jamming in the background for the whole trip. Yeah, this carburetor, man, it's pretty sweet. I'm more than 100% satisfied with the way this bike's running right now. You know, some of the issues I have with fuel injection, obviously there have been people with far worse problems than I had. My bike wouldn't idle. You know, the dealer just said, oh, they're cold-blooded. No, a fuel injected bike is not cold-blooded. That doesn't, those two things don't go together. Nothing that's fuel injected is cold-blooded. There's a problem, is what there is. So yeah, my bike, I would start it, it would die. I'd start it, it would die. I'd start it, get down the road a little ways, it would die. And then one time it died on me in an intersection as I'm just starting off, and I'm like, you know, we got to do something. So I started doing some research, discovered Dylan in Ohio, who kind of posted how to adjust your TPS voltage values to maybe richen things up a little bit. So I did that. I set the TPS at 0.71 volts, warmed it up good and hot, adjusted the idle RPM to 1200, and honestly, the bike ran great. I never had a problem with stalling after that, ever. I mean, I only have, what, coming up on 1900 miles. So I did that at probably 300 miles, and so it ran for 1500 miles, pretty much flawless. But I always had this feeling the bike at mid-range and wide open throttle, and even still sometimes at idle, it was just running super lean. I had the same spark plug in this thing for 600 miles, and I pulled the spark plug out and it looked like a brand new spark plug. There was nothing on it, no color whatsoever, and the thing always made the sound to me that sounds like detonation. And when it made that detonation sound, the cylinder head temperature would rise to 400 degrees, and you would not really lose power, but you didn't gain anything. It just made noise when you gave it, when you rolled on the throttle. So like right now, if I was to roll on the throttle when it had the fuel injection, it would make a weird clattering sound forever, which, you know, 1,000 people online tell you, oh, that's normal. No, that ain't normal. That's a freaking sound of detonation, at least where I'm from. And the cylinder head temperature kind of proves it. So that, and then you have people that started to have, oh great, started to have fuel pumps fail, and then they started to have relays fail, and they started to have map sensors fail. You know, getting their throttle bodies replaced, which would include a new map sensor. And I just lost confidence in this fuel injection system to remain consistent. And if you don't have 100% confidence in something to always perform at a certain level, then the fun slowly disappears. And obviously the further away you get from, oh, what is all this water? Why do we have water here too? The further you get away from the bike making you feel good, you know, the more you're going to start to dislike the bike, and the more you want to, you know, I'm going to get rid of this damn thing, kind of an attitude. And then of course your problems boil over into social media, and then you've got nothing but negative things to say about the bike. I tried not to go there, and mostly I did a good job. I had problems, I fixed them. I wasn't satisfied with the bike, I fixed those problems. And then of course you got the guys jumping up and down, just take it back to the dealer, take it back to the dealer. My dealer wanted 3 weeks just to do the first service. I didn't buy a bike for it to sit at a shop. Sorry, no. I mean, I could see keeping it for a couple days, right? Because you gotta change the oil when it's warm and you gotta adjust the valve when it's cold. So, you know, that's at least a 2-day thing. Make me an appointment, I'll drop the bike off, I can pick it up the next day. Nope, we need to keep it for 3 weeks. I'm like, no, you don't. So, anyway, you know, I was a mechanic, a professional mechanic for years, and factory trained by Yamaha and Kawasaki. And so there's nothing on this bike I can't do, so I just do it myself. Used to race motorcycles, used to drag race motorcycles, ice oval race motorcycles, and lots of trail and enduro riding. So I kind of, you know, I started riding when I was like 14. And honestly, I started wrenching on them when I was 15 because I just couldn't keep my hands off. I want to know, how does this work? Take it apart, fix it, put it back together, go. And that's just the way I've been ever since. And of course, being lucky enough to pursue that, my high school, one of our shop classes we could take was small engines. And I took that for my 10th, 11th, and 12th grade years. I pretty much could have taught the class at the end of my senior year, but that's another story. And I went right from that to working for Yamaha. Worked for Yamaha for a while. They also sold Polaris snowmobiles. Moved on to a different shop. The workload at the shop I was at, you know, when he took on Yamaha motorcycles along with his Polaris snowmobiles, he also took on the Yamaha outboards, which outboards are cool. I did a little outboard stuff, weren't really my thing, but the workload got severe and he wouldn't hire anyone else. And 7 days a week, 10 hours, 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, that wasn't my thing, man. You know, they're all out going on Saturday or Sunday, rather, going out and playing, and I gotta work. No, sorry, I'm done. Move on to the next shop. So I worked for Kawasaki, went to Kawasaki training, and stayed there for a while. Really liked working for Kawasaki, really liked working in the shop I was at. Bikes were easy to work on, I learned a lot. Worked on jet skis. They didn't have outboards, so I didn't have to mess with that. Jet skis are cool though. That was back when they still had 3-wheelers, remember those things? And then those turned into 4-wheelers. And that was about the time I started working on airplanes for a living. Moved on to bigger and better things. I actually joined the Marine Corps. And they made me work on airplanes. And they said, fix it or die.